Hey guys, welcome to the show. Andres Gamboa here, and we are on for another episode of the Ponytails podcast. Welcome to the show. If this is your first episode, hello, hello. If you're a book person, hello, hello. Make sure you connect. Go to our website. Go find out a little bit more about us. If you're not a book person and you're thinking, what the heck is this podcast about? Why is it called Ponytails? Why is this guy wearing a hat? Whatever questions you might have, hopefully it'll answer here. But Ponytails podcast is about and interviews people who sold books door to door during their college summers with a company called Southwestern Advantage based out of Nashville, Tennessee. The company's been around since like the 1800s, 1855 or something, and has been recruiting college kids just right after the Civil War to go sell books door to door to help families with homework. Now, we are not affiliated with the company. The only thing that we have in connection is that myself and some other folks on our team and every guest that we've had on the show did this program. They sold books for 80 hours a week on straight commission while traveling all over the country, doing all sorts of crazy stuff and getting into some really random and funny and outrageous encounters with the families that they met along the way. And so our show interviews people and asks them what they're up to now. We ask them to share some of those stories and some of those lessons learned during this experience. We talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly. We never know where it's going. And so we are excited about it today. My guest for the evening here, if you're listening in, is Jack Clark III. Jack sold 5 summers from 2007 to 2012, and he was part of the Eagle Blitz organization. Went to the University of Texas. Nobody's perfect. As a Nebraska fan, I have to say that. So sorry about that. Originally from Katy, Texas, now lives just outside of Dallas. And if you guys want to get a hold of him, you can reach him at Jack Clark III, as in the third, III, then the number 7 at gmail.com. Maybe you want to reach out to him, learn a little bit more about what he's up to. We're about to find out. We don't do any sort of pre-approach or research beforehand, just because we would love the organic conversations that have come out out of all these episodes. We're approaching 150. So if you like this, make sure you guys subscribe, follow us on Instagram. We're on LinkedIn. We're everywhere. And so for sure, make sure you connect with us if you have questions or if you want to be on the show. So last thing is Jack's favorite scroll of the Augmentino scrolls, which is the Bible of the book field, is number 5. I will live this day as if it is my last. And so please welcome on the show, Jack Clark. Ponytails podcast. Here we go. And we're rolling. How's it going, Jack?
Good. How are you, Andres?
Oh, happy, healthy, terrific. Is that what they told us to say?
Yes, and it's still nauseating every time I hear it.
Just twitch, just
Oh no!
happy. I feel like a dog with a shock collar, just expecting it.
Exactly.
That's scary. But I am pretty happy, pretty healthy, and pretty terrific. So thank you for being here. I'm so excited.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
This is so awesome. All right, now before we get started, I want to give a quick shout out to some of our friends here on the show. You probably know some of these folks. Jack, are you familiar with a gentleman named Mr. Quintin Roberts?
I am.
Oh, what a guy, right? Yes. So Quintin is one of our friends here on the show, and he's given us some advice on if you're looking to get into some insurance sales. Of course, he's working with Cardinal Senior Benefits. They're offering new positions if you guys are looking for stuff. But here's what he said: if you're looking to get into insurance in general, if you're entering, don't focus so much on the percentages. Be more on the lookout for the culture of the company that you're working with, mentors and management, the overall performance of the group. People fail in this industry because they don't have a good grasp on money. Most social relational issues in life are due to financial struggles. So when you join a job, you should be joining it as if you're going to marry it. So that's good advice from our friend Quintin Roberts. Thank you so much, Quintin. We're going to give some more shout outs throughout the episode as we're going along. But for now, let's jump in and get started. Jack, catch me up. What are you up to now? It's been 10 years since you sold the last door and you left the last checkout and you got out. You made it out. To catch us up in the last 10 years, what have you been up to and what are you up to now?
Yeah. Man, I can't. You know what? I think back, and Honestly, I think I sold books from '03 to '07. That's how messed up my mind is right now. And so I thought, surely it's been more than 10 years. And so I think it was back in '03 to '07. I knew '07 was a magical summer, but I guess it was my last and not my first. So
so when you told me 07, you meant that's when you ended. Because
yes.
you said 2012, and I was like, that okay.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
when you just said, it's been 10 years, I thought, man, it's been more than 10 years. So
We in the green room. That's when I was asking you this, and I'm like, all right, 07. I feel like I would have remembered you. Because I started 2012. I usually remember a lot of the managers. That's okay. That's okay. 03. Let's go back. What a year. What a great year. 20 years ago almost now. 20
exactly.
years ago. What happened in let's go from 07 to now, and then we'll chat about some Southwestern stuff later, but that's hilarious.
Yeah. So
08, the recession's come in, the whole stock market's in the tank. How'd you do?
yeah, I did okay. I mean, at that point, I'm 23, 24 years old, and the only other career job I've had since Southwestern was with Family Heritage. And so Family Heritage at the time was a sister company of Southwestern, and so I started with them back in actually at the end of 2007, beginning of 2008. So I've pretty much been with them for the past 15 years now. And I had a brief hiatus where I went and worked with an investment firm, and that was fun, but went back to kind of what I knew. And so I've been with Family Heritage for about 15 years. And, that has pretty much become a vehicle to allow my wife and I to pursue a lot of other passions. And so we've been pastors on staff at a church for 9 years. We've done a lot of real estate investing, commercial properties, rental properties, vacation rentals, wholesales, flips. We've done a lot of that. And then over the past about 3.5 years, my wife and I built a company. We invented a product, and we actually just sold that company 2 days ago. So I just got back from Florida last night, closed on the company on Tuesday. And so, a lot of transition right now. Our kids start school coming Monday. So it's been a whirlwind of the last, couple of years for sure.
Wow. That's okay. Hang on. Are you allowed to share what company, like what your company did, or is it too soon
Yeah.
for that?
Yeah. So I'll try to give you the cliff notes. So about 4 years ago, one of our kids, we've got 3 kids. One of our kids fell out of a shopping cart, even though he had been buckled in. And so he took a nasty fall, landed on his head. It was really bad. It was, humiliating for my wife and traumatic for my son. And, shopping became really stressful for my wife at that point. And I guess about 3 or 4 months later, we really believe that God gave my wife this idea for a product. My wife's not really entrepreneurial. She's a homeschool mom. We homeschool our kids. And, she serves a lot in our local church. And, she didn't really think business wise, but this idea popped in her mind for almost like a high chair tray that can attach to any shopping cart to help keep kids safe and secure while shopping. And so we felt like that was a God idea. We prayed and fasted about it for 60 days. And then we felt like the Lord was in it, and we said, let's go for it. And so March of 2019, we dove all in, man. And, we hired engineers and patent attorneys and manufacturers. We had it manufactured in Vietnam. I mean, it was something I'd never done before.
Wow.
So crazy learning curve. And so, we spend tens of thousands, if not, over, 150 grand developing and launching this thing. And then COVID hits, man. And then all of a sudden, no one's going shopping, and stores are, limited to 10 people a grocery store, and moms are freaking out now. And then, the trend of, grocery pickup and at home delivery was accelerated. And so, we COVID hit in March. We were already about 120 grand into this project. And at that point, we were already committed. And so COVID hit. We decided to delay the launch as long as we could. We thought maybe COVID would die out in, 3 to 6 months, but, it didn't really die out. And so we officially launched in September of 2020. And truthfully, it was just a hard road, for the last almost 2 years. It was a really tough road to, get sales off the ground. I've learned that e-commerce is a completely different beast than direct sales. I thought my skills as a direct sales guy would transfer over, and, they're night and day different. And so, God, kind of opened the door and started this whole thing. And, about literally 6 weeks ago, we were days away from just shutting the whole thing down and just taking a mighty, big loss and, just moving on and closing that chapter. But, literally at the very last minute, the 11th hour, God provided an exit strategy. And there was a couple out of Florida who had a similar experience with one of their kids. And these guys are more, e-commerce, monsters. And they saw the value and the potential in what we created. And they said, hey, if you're willing to, sign over the patent and all the inventory and the tooling, we think we can take it places where, you guys couldn't. And so, we were super grateful to have a clean exit and to, not lose everything, but, minimize our losses and to see the product stay alive. And so we took the deal, and I flew out to Florida on Monday. We closed on everything on Tuesday. And now we no longer have that company, but the product will live on, and we're hoping and praying that they do really well with it, and it still, eventually becomes a household name. So
That's so cool. I have so many questions. This is so fun. Okay, question number one. What's the name of the product? Like how can people find out a little bit more about the product itself?
yeah, it's called the Buggy Huggy, but it's with an IE at the end. So BUGGIE and then HUGGIE, the Buggy Huggy. And the website's just, buggyhuggy.com. And that's
Got
it.
it. Boom, right here. Here it is. Oh, this is awesome. Oh, I see. Okay, so then it's like a tray that folds out. Wow, look at that.
Yep.
That's cool. That's super smart. This website's super cute too. Look at that. This is so cool. All right. Cool. That's so awesome. Congratulations, first of all, on having a sweet idea, because
Yeah.
that's the first step. Dang. Okay. So many questions about this though, because this sounds like almost like a story from Shark Tank. Like the show, you know what I'm talking about, where it's like you show up, you got this product, you got the patent, you show up, and Mark Cuban's like, "What are your sales?" or whatever, and
Yep.
you're like, "Ah." So what? This has been a theme that we talked about on the show, but I feel like this is probably the most unique because you're probably one of the first people we've had on here that have created an actual like product. I mean, I guess Michelle with Hump Kombucha, she created like a consumable product, but this is like an actual product that you have to like patent. And this is something that in Southwestern, we've talked about this. They don't really teach you this kind of business stuff. Like they teach you sales, but like the whole like getting a lawyer, the patent stuff, all that stuff, what that learning curve that you were talking about being able to launch something like this. I guess if you could pick out like, anywhere 3 to 5 huge key points for anybody out there listening who might be a book kid and thinking they have a good idea for a product, how to like launch it, mistakes to avoid, and kind of what worked for you guys.
Sure. So there was a book, actually, one of the sharks, Lori Grenier, wrote a book called Invent It, Sell It, Bank It. And it's basically a roadmap from start to finish on how to take a concept and turn it into a product and get it on a shelf. And so, having no roadmap, I needed something. So I read that book like 2 or 3 times to just kind of get a, skeletal view of what's to come. And then, along the way, it's kind of a figure it out as you go. There's so many micro skills that need to be developed to do something like this that, you can't really spend the 3 years to prepare. You just have to figure it out along the way. And so the hope is, as an entrepreneur, the hope is that you're a fast learner, that you can, absorb information quickly, make decisions on the spot. I would say the hardest part of this, which was new for me, was having to make big decisions with only like 60 to 70% of the information. And so, I'm
Wow.
used to making big decisions with 90% of the information, but it's a different ball game when you're making, 30, 50, $80,000 decisions, almost on a coin flip. And so, that's where the gut comes in. That's where, just, faith comes in. That's where, a whole nother level of, that's why they talk about, certain business owners are visionaries and they almost have like a gut sense of, where something's going. Sometimes you have to rely on that gut because, you're trying to figure things out in real time, and decisions need to be made with deadlines, and you can't prolong those decisions. So,
That's that's brilliant advice. Now when you guys got started, walk me through like your wife comes up with this. First of all, I'm so sorry that this happened to your son. I should probably say that right away. That's a bummer that this is how it got started, right? Because
yeah.
that's a difficult, scary moment for any parent, right? Um, but then out of this idea, you find a way to out of this circumstance, you find a way to kind of solve an issue that you're thinking, man, other people have to be having this problem. And so how did you guys decide to pull the trigger on, okay, I have this idea, let's pursue this. What was that thought process like?
Yeah. So, we're pastors on staff. We love Jesus with all of our hearts. Our lives are submitted and sold out to him. I mean, he really directs all of our steps, decisions from what we do with our kids in schools, and, what I do for a career and how we spend our time. And so, like I said a minute ago, I mean, we got the idea. We felt like it was a God idea, but even then, I mean, we spent 60 days praying and fasting about, hey, is this something we should do? And, the Bible talks about counting the cost. And so we counted the cost. We knew that this was going to be a, $200,000 plus investment. We knew that this was going to take, 2 to 3 years of time. We knew that this was going to affect, family time. And we knew that this was going to, I'd have to lay down other things to pursue it. I laid down another business, and then I laid down a position on staff at a church that I found a lot of fulfillment in. I laid down a lot of influence, and, in order to pursue this and give this the time that it needed. And so, we talked to wise counsel. My dad's an inventor. He's brought a couple of products to the market over the last 30 years. Some were home runs, some were big failures. So, we picked his brain. I talked to some financial coaches of mine. And so, it wasn't just a, overnight decision. It was a 2-month journey. And then, all systems said go. And then at that point, we're the type, my wife and I, it's go big or go home. And so, we don't tiptoe in. I mean, if we feel like it's a yes from the Lord, we dive in, head first. So that's what we did.
That's such a cool lesson there too. Trust your gut, rely on your faith, rely on your mentors. And then if everything looks like a yes, don't go in on the stair side, cannonball in. and deal with the cold pool. That's awesome. As COVID hit and you're trying to figure out this e-commerce thing, what were some of the biggest differences that you like were surprised by between the differences in sales strategies, and what were some of the, maybe if any, similarities that you could connect from your experience with selling books?
Yeah, I think the only similarities from a direct sales standpoint is it's a numbers game. Continue to just play the numbers, whether that was with micro influencers, or reaching out to a certain number of independent boutique shops, or reaching out to press and publicity. We figured the more we reached out to, the law of averages would work out. But persistence, those are some of the principles that I would say transferred over. But at the end of the day, they're night and day different. I mean, e-commerce and direct sales, they are night and day different. And, one thing I've learned through the last 3 years is I was built for people, man. I'm not built to sit behind a computer and figure out keywords and algorithms. I mean, that's just not me. I need to be in front of people. And so, a lot of big differences between e-commerce and direct selling. So.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's been an interesting ride, especially with the podcast on our end too, because like this, people see this, and if you're listening, you hear this. But to put this together, there's so much other stuff that has to go on because everything's online. We're fully remote, and that's something where I have had to also do a quick amount of learning, and and I understand what you mean. It's a different beast when you're dealing with the internet, when you're trying to sell an idea online. It's whew, algorithms and keywords is probably you could go hours talking about all the craziness about that themselves. So I understand that for sure.
And it made me sick to my stomach, Andres, because I'm used to seeing the people that I do business with. I'm used to looking people in the eyes and being able to know who I'm about to shake a hand with, and just kind of trust. And it's easier to build trust when you can see someone, but through e-commerce, it's just you don't know who you're doing business with. I don't know who they are. I don't know what they represent. When we were working with influencers, some people would want to charge $1,000 for a post. And then we find out, 3 months later that, 80% of their followers were bought and purchased. And, just there's so many smoke and mirrors. And then, every time we'd hire a digital marketing company, their own, the recurring, strategy was, hey, let's just give it more time. Let's give it more time. But these algorithms change all the time. And so it's like, well, if they're changing every 3 to 6 months, how does anyone ever truly become an expert? And so, it just felt like a tilted game. It felt like a pay to play game. Whoever threw the most money towards ads, whoever threw the most money towards, just felt a little lopsided towards the little bitty startups. And so, when
Yeah.
you're used to going out there and working a system where you put in, X number of hours and give X number of presentations, and that it's going to yield Y results, it was just a totally different game, man, when you're just kind of throwing stuff against the wall and, hoping it works. And it's a different world. It was for me. So we failed in that aspect of it for sure. And, clearly there's people that have, made an amazing living and built amazing businesses, but we failed in that for sure.
I understand that it is a difficult road, and knowing who to trust and who to yeah, when you can't see them, like you said, it's that much harder for sure.
Yeah.
Golly, that's a while. Now, was this all personal financed, or did you like go reach out for investors in the company, or how did you approach this?
Yeah. So this is a cool story. So, we got the idea around January of 2019. February of 2019, I was also approached by some buddies to partner in a commercial real estate deal. And so, we had the funds for that. So I said, hey, let's do that. And, if this deal works out, it'll help fund, Buggy Huggy. And so, we kind of pursued both at the same time. And, fast forward, as far as Buggy Huggy, it was a $250,000 project. Okay. We used about 70 grand of our own money, and then we borrowed the other 180,000. And so we just sold the company, and I pretty much recouped my cash. That's about all we recouped. But, I'm still stuck with that 180 grand that we borrowed from friends and family. And so, but 6 weeks ago, we sold that commercial property, and I won't say to the penny, but almost to like the $1,000. What we gained on that property, what we gained on the sale of that property, will cover the debt from Buggy.
Wow.
And so, we just felt, how sweet was that? Because, we learned a lot in the last 3 years, but, financially it was, still a wash, and we can move on. And, this entire time I've still worked with Family Heritage, and, we still do a couple other real estate deals here and there on the side. So my family's been, more than taken care of, and we're content and we're good. But, financially, even through the loss of the business, we feel like God still took care of us, man. And, made another way for us to, cover that loss. So.
Yeah, that's so cool. It's kind of like hedging your bets, it kind of worked out that way, where it's like you said, it was a wash. But you know what the thing is? It was a wash for you financially, so nothing ventured, nothing gained, almost kind of feeling. But especially if this purchase, the person that acquired your company, if they can not only develop the product and really distribute it in mass, then you are probably allowing or helping thousands, if not several hundreds of thousands of kids be safe, right?
Exactly.
Millions of people that, like, the if it keeps one kid from something like that could be traumatic, and you ended up on a wash financially, I feel like that's a success, in general.
We are totally at peace, man. We are so content. We're so, happy that this is how it worked out. And I mean, the whole project could have just died, but the fact, like you said, that it is going to live on and, help, parents and kids, we're beyond grateful for that. And, just excited to see what they do with it. So, yeah, I had lunch. Cool. I had lunch with the new buyers, I guess Tuesday after we closed. And, at the end of the lunch, I said, hey, can I just pray for you guys and just, pray for this business? And, just wanted to, explode for you guys and do so well. And so, I hope that's what happens.
Yeah, that is so cool. That is so cool. Now, okay, switching gears really quick. I want to hear a little bit about being a pastor. How did this journey work out for you? And what are some thoughts and wisdom that you can share with us from what you do with that?
Yeah. So, Jack Black, the actor?
Yeah.
Okay. So I would say about 12 years ago, I guess, he was one of my favorite actors at that time. I don't remember what he was putting out, but just one of my favorite actors at that time. And then I went to this random, I guess, worship conference. And there's a worship leader called Rick Pino. Rick and then Pino, Rick Pino. He's like a prophetic worship leader. And anyways, this guy looks like Jack Black. He sounds like Jack Black. He talks like Jack Black. I mean, this guy is Jack Black in Christendom, right? And so I'm listening to this guy and I'm engaged in worship, but then all of a sudden I have this like light bulb moment where here you got these two guys, Jack and Rick, and almost the same gifts, the same talents, the same strengths. And one of them, Jack Black, has pretty much used those same strengths and talents to build an amazing, empire for himself, and to use those skills in the world and to become a great entertainer. And it's amazing what he's done, right? But then you got this guy Rick, who's got the same talents and gifts and strengths, and he's pretty much used those same things to build God's kingdom, man, and to really impact lives and to change lives and to see people set free and to come to know Jesus as the Lord and Savior. And I'm like, wow, you got these two guys with the same talents, and one used them for this and one used them for that. And my whole life, teachers, coaches, girlfriends, parents, professors, whoever, they've always said, I'm pretty talented. And, I was looking at my life, and at this point I'm like 27, and I'm like, you know what, I can use these, gifts and talents of whatever they are. And, I can go out and build a big empire, or, I could really use them to serve others, man. And I could really use them to build God's kingdom. And so I just got convicted, and, for weeks, man, I just couldn't let it go. And, I was already super involved in our local church. And then, I approached my wife one day and I said, hey, sweetheart, I said, I don't know if we're called to be pastors or anything like that, but I've just had this sense that, we're supposed to go get trained and, kind of deepen our walk with the Lord and get trained for ministry. And she starts laughing at me. And I'm like, what are you laughing at? She goes, well, about 2 months ago, I felt like the Lord put that on my heart. And I was just waiting for you to come and tell me. She goes, I thought it would be years from now. I didn't know it would be, a couple months from now, because we'd only been married for like 6 months. And so anyways, we were in unison, man. We said, let's do it. So at the time we lived in Houston, but there was a Bible school in Dallas that we had a lot of connections with. And we felt like that's where the Lord was leading us. And so she laid down her job. I didn't switch careers, but I was willing to start over at a new location. We put our house on the market, and within, 6 weeks we were gone. And we went to a school in Dallas called Christ for the Nations. And for 3 years, we got trained up to be ministers of the gospel. And so we did that for 3 years, just got trained up, really deepened our walks with the Lord. And, God worked out a lot of things in our hearts. We were so just immature. I was so cocky, man. I can make a long list of things I look back and just, kind of cry a little bit. But, God did a work in us, and he's continuing to do a work in us and will for the next, 50 years. But, we graduated from that school in 2013 and immediately got on staff at a local church. And we've been kids pastors. We've been, small group pastors. I probably now serve more in the role of an executive pastor without having the title. And so, wherever we can serve, we serve. We go on mission trips, once every 2 to 3 years as a family. We try to expose our kids to different parts of the, world and the country. And that's it, man. I figured I've spent, book kids talk about the grind. We all talk about the grind. Well, I've spent almost 40 years, just kind of grinding it out to, build businesses and stuff like that. But honestly, Andres, I want to spend the next 40 years just pouring my life out for people, bro. Just really laying it all down and loving on people and showing them the Father's heart. And that's my hope for the next 40 years. So
That's awesome. I literally about to ask you, like, what does the future look like for you? So to continue this path, it's super cool. I need to connect you, or have you connected with Trey Campbell?
Yeah, I know Trey real well. Yep. And I know Tabitha. I think Tabitha was on your show a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, she was. Trey does this, I think, or he started with Southwestern Travel, like a sister company or a sister nonprofit or something like that, where they do mission trips. So I don't know, that you made me think of that. I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, did you grow up in a family of faith, or was this something that you discovered at a throughout your life?
Yeah. So I did not. Well, I guess and no. So up until I was 5, every memory that I have prior to 5 is very dark. My dad was an alcoholic. He would hit my mom. I remember, him putting my mom up against a wall. I remember, my mom throwing out all of his luggage on the street. I remember cussing. I remember fighting. Just a lot of dark memories prior to 5. My dad, and he would share his testimony as well. But my dad, he slept with multiple prostitutes. He cheated on my mom. He, was an alcoholic. I mean, he did it all. And then when my dad was 38, he was watching some televangelist, and man, through that one little televangelist, God got a hold of his heart, man. He gives his life to Christ. And the next day, bro, he's sober. He pours out all the alcohol. He quits, sleeping around. I mean, cold turkey, done.
Wow.
And so his life was radically transformed overnight. And over the next few months, he's writing letters to everyone he's ever, hurt and offended, both alive and dead. He's just cleaning up his heart. We're all seeing this change in him. I'm too young to remember, but I'm sure my mom noticed. And so, then my mom comes to Christ. And then I remember as a 6-year-old boy, to this day, I remember my dad sitting me on his lap. We were on this long, like L-shaped, white couch in our living room. And I just remember the gravity of the moment. And, I didn't have to understand the doctrine, but I understood enough to know that, Jesus died and paid for my sins and, my, wrongdoings. And I invited Jesus to be in my heart. And, every memory past 6 years old is pretty much full of light. Everything prior to that is pretty dark. And so, I invited Jesus to be in my heart when I was 6, whatever that means. But, we began to go to church as a family and grow in our relationship with the Lord. And I'm sure I rededicated my life to Jesus at 12 and then again at 19. And, as I understood more, I continue to give more and more of myself, to him. And so, yeah, I guess initially I wasn't, but pretty much from 6 on, we were definitely raised in a pretty, biblical worldview environment. So
That is a wild story. That is such an interest, like the it's beautiful that there was that twist, that moment of change in your
yep.
dad's life and what it meant for you and your life and your kids. Wow. How isn't that funny how life is like that, where it's just like it's I mean, imagine he would have gone the other way on the channel and then you know what I'm saying? Or something like that. Just such a crazy circumstance that you were like, ah, there must be some part of this plan, right? Somebody's up
100%.
there. Somebody's up there.
100%. Yep.
That's so crazy. Wow. So cool. Thank you for sharing. That is awesome.
Yeah.
I want to switch some gears and talk a little bit about family heritage in case people don't might not know what that is or what that means and hear a little bit about your career through that. I'm going to give a quick shout out to one of our friends here on the show, and then we can go in that way. Will Metscher is one of our friends here on the show, and he has some advice for you if you're looking to go into coaching or if you're a coach. He's also hiring. He's in the top coaches in Southwestern Consulting. He has 3 pieces of advice. One, if you want to be a coach in anything, coaches are still broken. The question is, can you admit that about yourself and can you grow yourself? Number 2, you don't have to know everything about what you're coaching on to be a good coach. You have to actually care, ask good questions, and hold people accountable to doing more. And then number 3, your clients do not have to be the most driven. Some people are desperate for work-life balance and they just want to make a living and making that work to be able to be successful in that way. So if you can see yourself as a rockstar coach, we should put you in touch with Will. Thank you so much, buddy, for that. You are awesome, Mr. Metscher. Okay, Jack. So let me ask you this: for people who might not know what family heritage is for whatever reason, can you explain that and walk us through like your career in that realm as well?
Sure. So, Family Heritage, they sell supplemental insurance, cancer policies, heart policies, accident policies. They also do a little life insurance. It's kind of like Aflac. So if someone gets sick, their health insurance helps pay for doctors and hospital bills. But companies like Aflac and Family Heritage, we pay cash straight to the families to help out with all their other bills, time off work, bills at home, deductibles, co-pays, travel expenses, stuff like that. So we kind of specialize in cancer plans. We do a few other things as well. But as far as a career, some people come into Family Heritage and they build agencies. They build huge teams and groups of people that sell insurance. And that's one track, the career track of becoming an agency owner. And then some people, just kind of take a sales professional track and, they just sell insurance and make a living from selling insurance. But, great family environment and fun trips every year, and like most direct sales jobs, incentive trips and all that jazz. So it's been good. But for my family in particular, it's like I said earlier, it's kind of become that vehicle that's allowed us to pursue all these other passions. And so, I probably average about 15 hours a week of real work, but that provides a full-time income for our family, and that frees up a lot of time for us to launch things like Buggy Huggy, and to do real estate deals, and to be on staff at churches, and to homeschool our kids. And so it's been a great fit for my family, and we're very grateful for it.
That's cool. That's a good succinct way of doing it. It's so cool that that there is that avenue for you, right? Where you can, with something that that you're familiar with, that you're an expert at, but in 15 hours, you know that that's going to be enough to cover what you need, and to have that freedom. That's pretty cool. Congratulations. That's super awesome.
Yeah. So early on, I got hired as one of their, national sales director to build big teams of people. I built a couple big teams, at Southwestern. And so, from 23 to about 28, I built some big teams. I was probably running about 30 agents in 3 different states. But then in 2014, my oldest son, was turning 2. And I looked at my calendar for that month, and I was going to be gone, 19 days out of the month. And I was reading a book at the time called Courageous for Men. It's like a Christian fathership book, or fatherhood book. And, one of the principles it talked about is, fathers, husbands, one of their roles is to be the, provider for their family, but not just the financial provider, but also like the spiritual and the emotional provider. And so, I looked at my calendar and I realized, man, I'm making tons of money, I'm killing it, but I'm not there for my kids. And if I'm traveling, 20 days out of every month, and the business continues to grow and I'm gone even more, I'm going to be that guy in 10 years that looks up and has a ton of money, but, has no relationships with his kids. And so, towards the end of 2014, that's when I talked about that small hiatus from Family Heritage. I laid it all down, man. I said, hey, I got to walk from this, because it's, my family's more important than money. And so took a 70% pay cut. And that's when I went and started working as a financial advisor. And so got my Series 7, my 66. I'd heard that job was the family man job, 9 to 5 and all that good stuff. And so I laid it all down, man. I went and pursued that. But 9 months in, something happened with that firm. My fault, totally my fault. And at the end of that 9 months, I did not have a job with that firm anymore. And so, I figured I'm just going to go back to what I know, but I'm not going to, build big teams of people anymore, because I just can't spend that time. So in 15 ish, 2016, that's when I went back to Family Heritage. But I said, hey, I'm not going to coach anymore. I'm not going to train or recruit. That's an amazing opportunity, but for what I'm called to, and for what my family's doing, I can't pour my time into that. So that's when I just went back into the sales aspect of it, and it's been a good part-time gig for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that. I know exactly what you mean. It's like, hey, I'm good at this. I know what I need to do, and I can spend time with my kids. That is so cool. Yeah, prioritizing. That's when it hits you like that, where you're 19 days out of the 30 or whatever that you're going to be gone. And the old adage of Southwestern, 80% of it is just showing up, just being there. Yeah, that's tough. That's tough being away 19 days of the year. So that's the lesson in prioritization and understanding what's actually important. That's how to be a good dad. That's awesome. That's
It's
awesome.
true. And Andres, I'm sure you've had plenty of guys on this call, but I mean, most of my friends are in their 50s. Most of my close friends are in their 50s. I'm 38, and I can't count the number of men in my phone who've built massive financial empires, but they have no relationship with their kids. I've got minimum of 50 guys in my phone like that, who, if we saw their stats, their business stats, we'd be in awe. But if you could actually measure like the family dynamic, we'd be concerned. And I've had enough of those friends in my life to say, man, I don't want to do what they've done. And every single one of them, when we talk, they tell me how much they regret it. Every single one of them tell me how much they regret not spending time with their kids. And so I thought, for guys like us that are super competitive and super driven, I mean, that's nothing you decide to do early on. I think it just creeps up on you. And so I thought, man, I got to be vigilant about not letting that creep up on me. I've got to be, intentional about not letting that creep up on me, because we're built that way. We're built to run. We're built to, put in 100 hours a week and not bat an eye, and, just what's next, what's next, what's next. And so I think, when you're built like that, if you really do prioritize your family, you've got to keep that in check, and you've got to be aggressive about that. And, there were times where I wasn't good at that and I regret it. But most of the last 7 to 8 years, I've been pretty good at it. And I love it. My 10-year-old son to this day, when I come home, he comes up and hugs me and, Dad, I'm so glad you're here. And, we hang out and do a ton of stuff together and go on retreats. And, I wouldn't trade that for the world.
That's that's so cool. I don't have any kids yet. I just got married last February, but I love having these conversations with dads who, like, I get to learn these little nuggets from. It's kind of like the book field where you went out to go do the traveling and the thing and the money, and then you
Yep.
meet, but you kind of learn the parenting by accident because you just talk to so many families and you're like, I don't want to be that dad. I want to be that dad. I don't want to be that guy.
Yep.
So I'm getting that same thing here where
Mhm.
I've talked to a lot of cool dads and it's like, got it. I'm gonna prioritize that. It reminds me of what Will Metscher was saying when I did the shout out there, where he's talking about, like, some people don't want to make more money. They don't need to be more successful as far as their career. Some people just want to have a solid life, work-life balance or family life balance, and you're nailing that ratio. You're winning at that game. So that's awesome. That's
Thank
awesome.
you. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Let's wind the clocks back. If we could start talking about some Southwestern stuff, if that's cool, the good old book field talk. I'll give a couple more shout outs and then we'll move into that. If that's okay. Number one, I want to if you guys just got done selling books, so this is more for the people who just got done selling books, but really for anybody. Seth Hood and Zane Gallagher, I wanted to announce this. They're doing another Sizzler shred, another annual one. Last year they had 55 people. They gave away $4,500 in prizes to the top three, and they donated about $1,000 to the service project that they do at Sizzler. They're doing it again this year. So if you guys just got done selling books and you guys want to join in on habits and performance based competition on getting fit and getting in great shape and mentally, emotionally, and physically, let us know. They're looking to double their entries this year, so we can kind of do that. So that's a big shout out to them. And then I also want to give a shout out to Pat Roach. Jack, you probably know Pat. Pat's awesome. And with Southwestern Real Estate, we asked him for a little bit of some advice in the real estate side. If you guys are looking to go into real estate, you can always certainly interview with Pat. But if you're looking at your own thing, here's his advice for you: build out your network. That's the most important thing for you. You can do a few things in the real estate world. You can be, create a brokerage, or you can be a standard agent. The most important thing, though, is, your professionalism. Do you operate with integrity and reliability? Can you be accurate and determine a property's value? That professionalism is what you want. So as you can walk through the property and give the proper things and all the listings and stuff, strategically making sure that you know all your stuff. Be a student of the game. Each home is listed at a certain price, and if it's overpriced, you'll have a lot of leverage as a buyer. If it's underpriced, you have to act immediately. So those are some tips of wisdom from Pat Roach. And also, again, quick shout out to Quintin Roberts and Cardinal Senior Benefits. They are, down in crushing it over in Texas. Greta Huerta gave us some advice as well at our last Derby meeting. She was saying a couple of things. One is investing in yourself. So the first thing you got to do is get an emergency fund, $20,000 to $30,000 in savings for yourself. Make sure you do that first. So that is, if you are just now starting to come into some good money because you moved on from Southwestern, that way you can have some safety and some comfort. Make sure you guys do that. So that's how you can get buggy huggy, all right, in those savings. That's how you can start your own company, is having good savings by investing in yourself. So that's awesome. All right, Jack, so let's rewind the clock. So we're gonna go back to 03 and not 07. Because it was earlier than we thought. So 19 years, almost 20 years ago. Let's go back. How the heck did you first hear about this crazy door-to-door thing that summer? How'd you get into Southwestern?
Yeah, so this is a good story. So, my freshman year at UT, I was that kid that just rarely broke the rules, man. I didn't drink. To this day, I've never tasted beer, never smoked a cigarette. Just never had the desire, especially as a little kid. Raised by an alcoholic dad. Those first few years, I saw what that could do. I was like, I don't want to be that. And so in college, man, I didn't party. I was that kid that was in like 20 different organizations. I studied till 1 in the morning, just that kid. And anyways, I rarely kind of stepped outside of the boundaries and, broke the rules. But every time I did, man, it was like, God was like, stay in your lane. And so this one particular night, I'm in my dorm, and it's about probably 1:30 in the morning, and I'm studying or whatever, and all of a sudden my roommates come in, and they're kind of intoxicated, and they're like, what are you doing, bro? And I'm like, I'm just trying to study, and they're like, have you seen this thing in the hallway? I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about? They're like, there's this thing in the hallway and we don't know what it is. Come check it out. And I'm like, all right, you got my interest up. And so I go out in the hallway, and there's this little like thing on the wall. It's not on the ceiling, but it's maybe like 6 feet up. It's in like reaching distance, and it's just this little bitty circle on the wall. And they're like, do you know what that is? I'm like, I have no idea what that is. And they're like, well, why don't you like touch it? And I was like, all right. And so I went up and I touched it, and nothing happened. And we thought, surely this thing serves a purpose. Like, what is it? And so then I played a lot of basketball. So I grabbed my basketball and I just kind of like lightly like threw the ball at it, and nothing happened. And then I was like, forget this. So I jump and I punch it, right? Turns out to be a recessed sprinkler head. Okay. And so over the next 30 minutes, 4,500 gallons of water come gushing out of this little bitty hole. Okay. It's November. Okay. I'm in my boxers. It's November. I'm soaking wet. It's cold. It's in Austin. I run across campus to a buddy's house because I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Anyways, 2 hours go by. I walk back to the dorms, and there's like 4 fire trucks and 6 police cars. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is a big deal. And so I kind of sneak back into my dorm room. It's 3:30. I get under the covers. I go to bed. And at 3:45, I hear this knock on the door. Austin City Police. Is Jack Clark in there? And I'm like, oh my gosh, they know it was me. And so Andres, I told you I was pretty cocky back then and pretty vain. Like I had a relationship with Jesus, but I still had a whole lot of the world in me. So I'm going to confess to you, my first thought, okay, when I got out of my bed, my first thought, because I knew I was going to jail, my first thought was, I hope my hair looks okay for my mugshot. That was my first thought. And so
wow.
I think I even checked my hair before I opened the door. But anyways, I get taken to jail, and I'm held overnight for, I think it was criminal mischief. And long story short, there's a purpose to this story. So I get sued by the institution for restitution. All that water, it seeped through the floors and leaked into the rooms below ours. So computers, other students, their computers were damaged, their clothes were damaged, like just a lot of stuff was damaged. And so the school's insurance covered the property damage, but they sued me for the restitution to people's personal items. And so, I was kind of, cool in the dorms, but when you mess with, kids' stuff, they're going to want to claim all of it. And so, it turned out to be about $25,000 of damage.
Oh
and
my
so,
gosh.
and so, I go into the Christmas holiday thinking, what am I going to do? Because, my parents are broke and they can't help me. And, I don't want to be in debt for the next 10 years for some stupid mistake. And so, anyways, that next, spring semester, I see a flyer, crazy summer job, average kid makes $8,000 and for 3 months worth of work. And I'm like, well, if the average kids make that, I've always been a little bit above average, maybe I can make, a little bit more than that. And so, truthfully, one of my biggest motivations for selling books my first summer was to pay my restitution bill. And my first summer, I got a check for $26,000. So I paid off, my restitution, and I probably had a little bit of money left over for hair gel, so it worked out. So there you go.
Do you suppose we can find this mugshot?
Oh, I have no idea, but I
See,
think I had a
see if your
big
hair was still
smile.
good.
What's that?
See if your hair was still good.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
Let's see. Jack Clark, Austin, mugshot. I don't even know.
hey,
2003.
if it shows up, I'm happy for it. Yep.
That is hilarious. If I find it, we'll throw it on there. That's wild. Oh man. Okay, so you get arrested, in your head, like when you when you go out to the summer, that's a lot of pressure. Like most kids will go out to the summer hoping they're gonna make money, but knowing, heck, if I don't, whatever, maybe the experience is good or the travel is good or right. But for you, was there like, how did you handle that pressure? Because obviously you handled it well, but how did you find a way to kind of like not let it get to you while you were going out to your first summer?
Well, I figured, I didn't know what was going to happen, but as a kid, I did fundraise, growing up. Like I was that kid that actually took those school fundraisers, jump rope for heart and whatever they were. I literally went door to door, and I was always that kid that got in the money machine and won the big prizes. And so I thought, well, geez, Louise, if I did so well with those fundraisers as a kid, surely I'll crush, selling books door to door. And I knew how to work hard. I wasn't a stranger to hard work, and the hours didn't scare me. So I thought, if these guys are, being honest, and if you put in those hours, you make that kind of money. In my mind, I thought even if I made, 10 to 15 grand, that's going to cover a big chunk of this bill. So, I didn't have the pressure of, covering all of it, but it just so happened to work out that way to where I did.
That's that's awesome. Now, when you get out to your first summer, first of all, I guess where did you go? Where did you go that summer?
First summer was Owensboro, Kentucky.
Good old good old Kentucky. Wow. Okay. And in your mind, I always ask about the first summer specifically a little bit more than the rest because it's the one that like just really, I mean, it's the one that just hits you like a wet Saint Bernard, as Bills used to say. It just like
Yep.
it just bites you. Well, when you get out there, you know nothing. What was like the most vivid memories that you have of like that first summer that you can recall? Because I feel like that's the biggest one, right? That's the one that
Sure. So
influences you.
I remember, my first day, I probably went 5 hours before making a sale, and I finally did. And I think it was a MUFU with no money down. And so I was like, I'm going to get something. Like, I don't care what it is. And so, back then they were like $29, and, I couldn't even get them to put a down payment on $29. So, I remember this. I remember the first door I knocked on. I was top dog at sales school. Everyone thought I'd set the world on fire, king of the approach. And I remember my very first door, I knocked on the door, and the lady comes to the door, and I literally froze. I literally froze. I had nothing. I had nothing. And I stood there for 15 seconds. Nothing came out of my mouth. I just grabbed my bag and I left. It was the most awkward experience ever. But I was just I don't know what it was, but my first week, man, I sold I sold like 400 units my first week. And
Jeez.
I know. And so I go to the Sunday meeting, and I remember the guy that did my PC. Um, his name was it was Scott Davis, and the guy that did my PC, he was like interrogating me. He was like, did you really meet these people? Did you really collect all this money? And I'm like, yeah, like here are the checks right here. Like, look, this is Betty, this is Joan. And so I'm like, why do these guys think I'm lying? And then I find out that I sold more than all the managers that first week. And I'm like, oh, now I know why they think I'm
I
lying.
understand.
And so, at that point I was like, okay, I think I can do this. And, it was a great first summer.
That's so cool. And I mean, obviously, with that kind of profit, you hit the Sizzler trip, all that jazz.
Yeah.
And you had a really good experience. Now, did you know that you wanted to come back right away? I mean, because I mean, I feel like that's also a moment where you're like, we've had people that do well that don't come back. How did you know that you wanted to do full
Yeah,
again?
I think when I wrote that check to UT, and my whole summer was gone, I thought, man, maybe it would make sense to do this one more time, and then I get to keep that money. And so I was sold on the value of coming back for that second summer, to get that management experience. I think I was sold on that, but you know, that's probably what brought me back to my second summer.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And did you get to improve, or how did the rest of the 4 summers go for you?
Yeah, so units wise, I think my first summer was a little under 6,000 units. Second summer was 9. Third one was 12. Fourth was like 11. And then, I don't,
Wow.
yeah. So, but I remember I was going to quit after my second summer. And I had built a pretty good relationship with Dan Moore and Lee McCroskey. And I remember Dan and I went out to eat during checkout. And I remember telling Dan, I said, Dan, I said, I love Southwestern. I love what it's, done for me, and, the opportunity that it's been. But I said, Dan, I really got a problem with your mission statement. He goes, what are you talking about? I said, well, I said, I'm not trying to be judgmental, but, the motto is building character in young people since 1868. And I said, Dan, every Sizzler that I've been on, every GRS that I've been to, every company trip that I go on, it seems like everybody is just completely blitzed and wasted and just sleeping around. And it's like, the DSMs, a lot of times they're involved in it. And I'm like, I don't see any
Mm.
character being developed. I see a bunch of kids just going nuts. And then Dan Moore tells me this personal story, and he goes, Jack, I had the same experience back when I was, I don't know if it was Harvard or whatever Ivy League school he was at. He goes, but he goes, that was the same thing. I sold books with a lot of frat guys, he said, and that was the culture. And he said it was just crazy. He goes, I didn't really like it either. I was, involved in it, but I didn't participate in it. He goes, but my student manager told me, he said, Dan, you can either, run from that culture, or you can stick around and try to influence it. And Dan Moore said, however many years before that, 20, 30 years before that, he had made the decision to stick around and try to influence the culture. And so he challenged me to do the same. And I said, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. And Jesus didn't run from all that, stuff. He lived right in the midst of it, bro.
Right.
Yeah, that's who he is. That's our Jesus. And so I decided to stay, for another, at least 2 years to try to influence the culture of UT, my little microcosm of a culture. And, over the next 2 years, I think, UT got on the map. We were the top 1 or 2 schools for 2 years in a row. And we kind of shifted the culture because I brought out a lot of big teams, and people tend to recruit people that are like-minded and, kind of similar. And so it was a cool journey.
That is awesome. And I know the story you're talking about. Dan shares that at JRS. He shares his life 101 story where he talks about like how he was part of that party environment, and like the moment that he woke up from it and made that decision. So that's really sweet that he shared that with you personally, because that's any time you get a chance to sit down with Dan Moore to kind of get some life advice and kind of have that conversation with him, it's usually pretty worth it. So
Yeah.
that's amazing. That's super cool. Then we were talking about this a little bit earlier. We hinted at this, but how did you decide that it was time to leave? Was it just time, or like what brought to that decision, and why not number 6?
Yeah, so I probably would have been in Southwestern for 20 years. I really loved what I was doing. I loved the impact that we were able to have on college students, and I probably would have stayed for 20 years. But then I met my wife, and up until that point, no girl, had ever been more of a priority in my mind than my own career goals, dreams, visions. Like, every girl always came second to my plans. And then I meet this girl and I'm like, I'll lay everything down. Like, I will drop it all tomorrow if I can just be with her. And I mean, she rocked my
Whoa.
world, bro. And I realized,
Smitten.
yeah, I realized in that moment, me being on a college campus with young college girls, 4 months out of the year, and then being in podunk nowhere for another 3 months out of the year. Like, for me to be gone 7 months out of the year, how do you pursue a real relationship with someone? And so, it was because I met her that I was like, hey, it's time to make a life change, and I need a different schedule, and that's when I chose to leave.
You had to see about a girl.
That's it.
That's not great movie, great reason to leave Southwestern.
That's it.
Oh man. I will say, and maybe this isn't that doesn't have to be a conversation that we have, but if you have thoughts on this, I would love to hear this. But um, this is the part about the culture in Southwestern that is so strange that hasn't changed because you were experiencing this between 03 and 07. I experienced it between 2012 and 2016. We've had people on here talking about they experienced it in the 70s, where it was exactly that. They book people work hard, but they party probably harder, and just that makes a culture kind of creates like this uncomfortableness inside of it. How when you were doing your thing at UT, what were the best ways that you found to implement like your personal beliefs on onto your team? And I know that sounds kind of weird to ask, but like what I mean is like as a leader, how do you influence people to try to help them grow instead of like encouraging them to go party and drink and that kind of stuff? But is there anything that in particular that you use to approach that situation?
I think consistency in young people's lives is big. I think they need a consistent person in their life, and I think that consistency in and of itself shows that you're faithful to them, shows that you care to
Mm,
be in their lives. I mean, I think everyone that I ever worked with understood that. I really didn't give a flip. How much money they made me. I cared about how well they did, but I cared about them hitting their goals, not goals that I'd put on them. And so I think when people really know that you've got their best interests at heart, when you truly do, then they can trust you. And once they trust you, over time, maybe they ask you advice on things here and there. But I think the book field can also bring out the worst in people. And it's in those trench like moments where you can really begin to speak life into people. I remember, one of the summers I brought a pretty big team, 20 something people. And, one of the guys during checkout, he, I won't share his name, but during checkout at Landers Plaza, he just got really intoxicated and he urinated all over the couches at Landers Plaza, like at corporate office. And he was
wow.
embarrassed and he was ashamed. And so, I was the first person that he got to see. This same kid had been in jail, twice that summer for drinking. And, never once did I make him feel judged. Never once did I make him feel shame. But man, just, speaking life over him and calling out purpose and calling out destiny in him, even in those horrible moments, those are the moments that, can really mark people and set them on a course, to go a different direction. And, that guy, I think a couple years later, we still stayed in touch for a while, but, he's sobered up. I think he's been sober for the last like 10, 15 years. He's got a family now, great business. But, the book field will bring out the, best and the worst in people. And if you've got a voice in someone's life when they're going through one of the worst times of their lives, it's a very vulnerable moment. And, you can use that opportunity to really speak purpose and life and destiny into them. Or you can say, hey, let's go drown in our sorrows and whatever. And it's like, man, I'm going to take advantage of those opportunities and try to mark people for life.
God, that is so cool. I gotta compliment you. I hope you don't mind, but that you live life so humbly, or with so much humility that it's inspiring, man. I'm just listening to you talk about how to pour into people and how to love people and not judge people, and it's like in my head I'm thinking, man, if everyone in the world was a little bit more like that, what a world we would be in, because it's such a key thing that people forget. And I feel like not just in Southwestern, although this does happen, but just people forget to just see the human, not the errors or the success, right? But just really just understand this is just another person in life. And the key here, the calling that we have, is to love people well, especially through your faith. And so that's you do that really, really well. So I commend you for that. That's so awesome. That's so
Thank
awesome.
you. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Oh, wow. So great. Now, let me ask you about this. Are there any highlights of your career before, not including the fun ponytails, but any other like major highlights throughout your career that you have? Because I specifically wanted to know a little bit about your mentality and how you grew so fast. For people who are listening who might not know, to go from first of all a 6,000 unit summer for a first year is crazy. Like I think since my first summer, I saw Hannah Reesberg had 6,000 units, and since then I don't think there's been a first year that's done that. Or
Mm,
like it might have been just one in the last 10 years. That's maybe, if any.
mm.
So that's a pretty big number. And then you go from there and you just grow, and then you grow and you just reach this high performance level. So maybe, I guess, how did that happen, and what were some of the key moments in your summers that just allowed you to kind of hit that kind of growth?
Yeah, and I'm sure everyone would answer this the same way, but if someone's truly taking what they're doing seriously, they become a master of their craft. You go follow people that are better than you. I remember my second summer, early on, I went and followed a guy named Tommy Wood, and Tommy Wood was writing, I think 7, 8, 9,000 units a summer, and so I thought, well, if I want to do that, I gotta go watch someone that can do that. And so, I drove, 6 hours to go follow Tommy Wood. And then he taught me how to sell kids books. And, I was good at the handbooks, but, he lit a fire on, this is how you sell a lot of kids books. And that one tool was probably what took me from, 6 to 9,000 units. And then I think my third summer, I just picked the brains of, top producers, understood at that point, it's a time game, and, how do you manage your time? And so, and then you reach a threshold, and have you heard the name Theo Davies? Have you heard that
Yeah,
name? Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So when I heard that, a couple years after I had left, when I had heard that Theo had done like 20,000 units in a summer, like at first my mind was, thinking this is physically impossible, because I was the guy that milked every minute of a 100-hour work week. I ran between doors. I had the watch
Dude,
set for presentations. Like I was that guy. And like to go from my best summer of, I think it was close to 13 to 20, like I would have needed, 3 or 4 extra weeks. Like it didn't make sense on paper. But then I
right.
realized and learned that Theo worked off referrals. And it baffles me to this day that 20 years ago in a direct selling business, we were never taught referrals. We were never
Still
really taught
aren't.
referrals. And so it baffles me. And, if someone bought $600 worth of books from me, why the heck was I never trained to ask that person, hey, who are 2 or 3 people that that would benefit from something similar to this? But someone taught Theo referrals, and that's how you go from 13 to 20, And so something's going to happen in the next few years where someone writes, 30,000 units in a summer, and, it is what it is. So,
That's such a good point. We've actually talked about this on the show. Kate Wright was the one that mentioned this. She's like, one of the things that we never ever taught kids was referrals, and I don't know why. Because the book kids will leave. We're talking about 9 summer bookmen and women, producers of 10,000 plus units, leave, go on to a next career, and
the
the
cold
referral
call.
game is just so not. Yeah, they just start cold calling. No
Yeah.
referral game. And they have not even like a bit of skill in referral, nothing. It's just, but here's another fine example. We had Zanita, I think it might have been. I think it was Anita. I can't remember now. This is one of the European kids in June that we were interviewing, and she got sent to uh, Amish country, southern Indiana, and people who might not know, they only go up to 8th grade, and then it's over. So you can't really sell any of the handbooks, or today's are called the advantage books, because they don't need that. They don't go past geometry. So like it's pointless, and it's a different culture. So you don't, so all you do is sell kids books and family Bible libraries, which is another product line in Southwestern. And she had to like figure out, how do I do this? Cause this is insane. Everybody here is Amish, and she's from Europe. So she's never even, you know, like seen this, and started going doing referrals. She sold 13,000 units, was the number one dealer across the whole company, and it was just strictly based on referrals. And she literally would be like, "All right, you like them? Great. Who are 3 people that I should call? Can you call them? No, you can't. You don't have a phone. Do you know where they live? Okay, I will go." Like that's, like it was that, and she would just literally, if it was across town, she didn't care. It was because that's so not the Southwestern way. They tell you go to the next available house. No, she would just go across town. Sure enough, they'd buy. Same thing. So, and they don't teach any of that. It's so crazy. So crazy. So crazy. Unbelievable. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Yeah.
That's wild, man. All right, so let's do this. Let's switch over into I got two more segments. One, let's do quick fire rapid fire questions, and then we'll do the ponytails if that's cool with you.
Yep.
As we do the rapid fire questions, I just want to point out these are just coming up to my head. We don't always do this, but we started doing this lately, and it's kind of fun. So, rapid fire question number one: favorite state to sell in out of the 5 summers?
Minnesota.
Nice. A lot of people have said Minnesota. Okay, cool. Um, country, big brick. What's the best territory in your mind? If you could just pick any territory to go back and sell books to.
Big brick.
Ooh, yeah, big brick. I'm
Hey,
more of a country guy, but yeah.
and one time, I got the nickname one summer of the Rabbit Killer, and so one time I'm working big brick, and it's like real big brick, and I got this guy behind me. His name's actually Andres Rincon, and we are running. I mean, we're sprinting from house to house. Anyways, I leap over this bush. I mean, it's a good 7-foot jump, and my foot lands on a little sweet little bunny, and I kill it. And it was a wild bunny. It wasn't someone's pet, but man, I felt so bad. And then Andres told the OL, and then for the rest of the pace setter, I'm pretty sure my name was Jack the Rabbit Killer Clark. So
Oh, let's go.
yeah,
Jack the Rabbit Killer Clark. And was this in Minnesota that you did this?
I think either Minnesota or Georgia, one of the two.
That's awesome. All right, so big break. All right, best advanced or your favorite advanced sales tape?
Oh man. Oh, I think it has to be Roger Sipe. Yeah.
All right, Roger Sipe. There's so many good ones.
Yep.
we get a mix. I mean, my personal favorite, Bill Zizzy and Dave Rosen, classic. But go check out Roger Sipe's episode. By the way, we had him on the show in May. If you haven't seen it,
Okay.
we talk about the Roger Sipe tape. And then the last bit of it is what was your favorite get back of the year? What was like to your favorite meeting of the year?
I guess I like GRS. Just fresh start to the year, fresh vision, new dreams. I like GRS.
Heck yeah, absolutely awesome. That's right, sir. I love it. Sweet. All right, so let's move into some ponytails. This is, if you guys don't know, if this is your first episode, this is where we save the best or favorite stories of our guests' experience. We've had the gambit with everything in between. Finding your faith in your middle of your second summer. We've had crazy sizzler stories. We've had really big customer stories. But the microphone is yours, Jack. Go ahead. Share 1, 2, as many as you want. All you.
Okay, I'll share a couple. So this one's dramatic. Okay, so I think it was my 4th summer, and I promise you've never heard anything like this before. Hey, if you've done 140 plus episodes, I guarantee you've never heard this before.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm an OL. Okay, and I've got a group of I'm probably 60 college students, and it's about 2:30 in the afternoon, and what's it called? I guess I get a call from one of my managers. He was a manager at the time, and he goes, Jack, you're not going to believe what just happened to me. And I said, what happened? And first off, I was ticked off that he was calling me in the middle of the day, because we're so schedule focused, right? And I said, well, what happened, man? I figured he wouldn't be calling me if it wasn't, important. And then his voice starts to quiver. Okay, I could like see through the phone. I could see his lip quivering. And he goes, I was just kidnapped. And I was like, bro, I don't have time for this, man. I'm in the middle of my day. Like, come on, what are you talking about? And then, I could hear it in his voice even more. He goes, no, really, Jack, I was just kidnapped. And I could tell he's being serious. And so I stop everything and I'm like, bro, what happened? Tell me what happened. So this guy had pulled into a gas station. Okay. He was filling his car up with gas, and almost like you'd see in the movies, like that movie Taken, this
Yeah.
white van like skids into the gas station, opens the sliding door. Three men grab him, put a black thing over his head, and they drive him off. And as they're driving, he tells me that they begin to interrogate him. They begin to ask him all these questions. And this guy is flipping out. He's like, I'm not the guy. I'm not the guy. You know, blah, 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 blah. And he's just like ranting and raving. I'm not the guy. Like, you got the wrong guy. And after, I don't know if it was 30 minutes, an hour, or whatever, but these guys realized that they actually have the wrong guy. And so they drop him off in the middle of nowhere, bro. And
Oh
he
my
don't know
God.
where he's at. You know, this is before I sold books before GPS, bro. We barely had the Garmin's, right? This was,
Yeah.
we pulled out atlases. Okay. So he's in the middle of nowhere, and he has to walk however far to find, you know, his car. He gets back to this gas station, probably 3-4 hours have passed. His car's sitting right there, keys in the ignition, gas thing in the tank, and it's 2:30, and he calls me and tells me this story, bro, and I'm just baffled, shocked. Like, I thank God it was a manager, you know, and he was an older manager. I bet he was, you know, 22, 23. Had that been a 19-year-old kid, and, you know, I don't know how that parent call would have been, but, you know, this guy had become a friend of mine, and, you know, he got over it. He was able to shake it off, but I mean, he was rattled, bro. And, you know, I think that was the first time where, you know, I got off schedule, he got off schedule. We were like, went away and processed what had just happened. And, you know, for a couple hours, and it was nuts.
Holy cow.
So I think I went back and worked that night. I think I worked, you know, gravy that night. And I don't boast in that. That's a testimony of how messed up we were, bro. That's a testimony of just how messed up we were. And I don't want to say brainwashed, but it's like, you know, if we're putting, you know, schedule and demo goals and sales goals above a truly traumatic experience like that, man, we're not in the people business. We're in the let's go make some money business. And so that's probably one of my biggest regrets that summer, of just not spending the whole rest of the night with that guy and just being, you know, being there for him. But just crazy story. So
Well, so first of all, you're right. We have not had a story like this on the show yet.
yeah, and he's great now. He's cool now. I mean, this guy, he's a good friend of mine, and he went off and he lived in New York. He was crushing it, bro, for Google. I mean, just crushing it. He started his own photography company. I mean, this guy is, you know, crushing life, you know, from a business sense. But, you know, what a crazy experience, you know.
Ask him if he wants to be on the show. We'll get that as the ponytail. That'd be crazy. That
Okay.
is so bananas. So first of all, you're right. We have not heard that. And second of all, to your comment about this, like the amount of pressure that you feel, and then the guilt that you feel, because nobody would have blamed you if you would have stayed with him and just comforted him the whole rest of the day. Like, you know, go home, go whatever, go eat some pizza, right? Just like try to do some normalcy, go back to normalcy after something that traumatic, especially with, like, I mean, this is the kind of stuff you see in the movies, man. Isn't that
Yep.
like a and there is something to that we've talked a little bit about on the show. More so, we've also talked about, and I will always bring this up because I think it's important, especially for mental health stuff. Nowadays, people are that seems to be an epidemic in our country today is people's mental health. And you leave Southwestern, and sometimes those kinds of things happen to you, and there's nobody to talk to you about it. Not at checkout, not at GRS, not at Sizzler. Nobody's there to just. I mean, nobody probably talked to him about that. Like, well, for I don't maybe ever. Who knows? Like, we don't know. That happened in 05 or whatever some of that was, and we don't know that if he's ever. I mean, we know for a fact that it not from Southwestern has anybody professionally and like unbiasedly talked to him about processing that and what happened. So that's a big flaw for sure. That's a big problem for
Yeah.
sure. And so some people don't need it. Some people it's like you just had a regular summer. You went 12 weeks. you hit your 30 demos a day. You made your check. Nothing crazy happened other than, the ordinary thing, right? But some people go through that kind of stuff, and we've heard those stories on the show. And it's like, did anybody talk to you about this stuff? I mean, yeah, you get your PCs and stuff with your manager who's 25
Yeah.
and has some sort of financial interest, whether that's important to them or not. It's still like there, even if it's
Yep.
not like why they. I mean, they might be willing to help you with good intentions, but that's still there. There's no like unbiased party that's just sitting there going, "Hey, let's talk about what just happened," because
Yeah.
that's intense and that's not normal, right? So I'm glad that you bring that up because again, I will never fail to mention that every time. People sometimes need that human to just be there with them and share the load. So,
Yep.
wow, that's crazy. What a wild story. That
Yeah.
is wild, man.
Yeah. But I've got good stories too. So I'll
Let's do that.
so
Cleanse
from
the palate.
yeah. So from my third to my fifth summer, this is a crazy stat, and I'll tell you some games I played. So from my third to my fifth summer, I probably only worked about 15 days alone. And so for the
Oh,
other, what's that? 7 or 6 times 12 is 72 times 210. So for the other about 195 days, I had someone follow me, bro. So 95% of the time from summers 3 through 5, someone was behind me following me. And
wow.
so, that got exhausting in and of itself. And so I had to make that fun for me. And so in Georgia, for the entire summer of Georgia, I played the pine cone game. Have you heard of the pine cone game?
No.
Okay. So Georgia, bro, they got those tall pine trees and they got all these pine cones on the ground. And they're not those like lush pine cones. They're those like pointed little bitty dagger football pine cones. And
Yeah.
so I played this game my entire summer in Georgia where when someone followed me to, kind of create that sense of urgency, I would run, bro. I'd always beat people to the door. I was fast, I sprinted. And so my game with the people that followed me was if they could get out of the car, grab a pine cone and throw it at me before I got to the front door, then whatever part of my body that they hit, I could not use that body part in the entire presentation. And so if they hit me in the leg, I would do the approach standing on one leg. If they hit me in the arm, I could not use that arm in the demo, right? If they hit me in the head, I would literally give the approach with my head hung like I was hung, right? Well, the biggest mistake I made was allowing this like college baseball player to follow me that summer. And I'm telling you, bro, not only was this kid fast, but he could like pelt me. And so he would throw 2 or 3 pine cones at me before I get to the door. So I'd have like 2 or 3 body parts that I couldn't use. And I went home that night completely bruised because I mean I was just pelted all over the place. But it kept it fun and it kept it interesting. And that was my Georgia summer. So
Hi, are you the mom of the house? What? My neck? Nothing. It's broken.
exactly.
That's great. You kids can still do that today. That's awesome.
It's a good one.
Ah, I love that. I would carry around a football and just approach with it at the door. Just like you're not threatened by some dude throwing a football like up and
Exactly.
down. Sometimes if someone was following me, we'd leave the windows down. I'm like, if I get this in the window, right? Like I'm gonna get all your units for the week. Like so I like throw it, whatever. It was so fun. You gotta have fun. You gotta have fun on the book field. You gotta have
Yeah.
fun on the book field.
And I'll give
That's
you one
awesome.
recruiting story. So I think it was my last year, my fifth summer recruiting a team. I was full time recruiting, and this one international student came through the interview process. Okay, and his name was John Lin, and John had a very thick accent. Okay, I think he was from China. He spoke Mandarin Chinese. He had a very very strong Chinese accent, and so he came to the interview. And I don't know how you guys recruited, but at the end of our informational meeting, we'd pull kids aside and begin to that selective
Yep.
process.
Mm-hmm.
So I pulled John aside and and I remember, telling him, having that first conversation, and then I remember thinking to myself, I made a quick judgment, but I was like, yeah, I don't think this kid is going to make it, and I don't know if I want this guy to be part of this team that I'm building. I'm building a certain type of culture or whatever, and whatever. And so I just didn't feel like he's going to be a good fit. Language barrier and just whatever. And so I told him during the interview that follow up. I said, all right, here's the deal, John. I said, I've only got 20 spots on this team, and I've already got 15 taken. I'm only looking for 5 more people, and so whoever I bring out this summer, they got to be best of the best, cream of the crop. I mean, they gotta know everything forward and backwards. So here's what I'm going to do, John. I'm going to give you this sales talk. This is our sales talk. 20, 30 pages, whatever it was. This is our sales presentation. John, I'm going to set up a follow-up meeting with you in 3 days. If you come back in 3 days and you have this entire thing memorized, I will give you a spot on this team. And I'm thinking,
Whoa.
surely this will be like this will scare him off, right? And so we schedule the follow-up interview, whatever, and so I think this guy's not going to show. I'm hoping he doesn't show. 3 days later, Andres, he shows up in a 3-piece suit, okay? And he sits down with all the confidence in the world, and he's like, all right, I'm ready. I'm like, what are you ready for? He goes, you told me I needed to memorize this sales script. I said, are you serious? You did it? He goes,
let's go, John.
He goes, try me. And so sure enough, he did it, bro. And I gave him a spot on the team, true to my word. And that summer he went out there, and I think he wrote 800 units. The guy worked his tail off and, overcame so many obstacles. I'm sure it was, such a great experience for him. But the best part of the story is a couple years later, that was my 5th and last summer. So a couple years later, I'm now working for Family Heritage. I'm married, we're about to start a family. And all of a sudden I get this call, this random phone call. And I had changed phones. I changed phone numbers. So I answer the phone, and it's John. He goes, hi, is this Jack? I said, yes. Who is this? He goes, this is John Lin. I am with, and he starts going through like a company script, right? And I'm like, John Lin, what's up, bro? How are you? How are you doing? And you can hear pages turning, okay? You can hear pages turning, and he starts reading the script again. I am with, so-and-so company. And I go, John, put the script down for a second. Just talk to me. How are you? What's going on? How you been? And he just goes right back to his script. And so I let him read his script. And then, at the end of the call, I'm like, wow, Grasshopper has become master. You are now. And so
you nailed it.
Had, I guess, taken a career in some type of sales job. And I don't know what he's doing now, but really, really cool recruiting story,
Yeah. Did he ultimately recognize you? Did he ultimately recognize that it was you?
Yeah, he knew he was calling me, but I didn't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't know it was him. So exactly.
Oh, I thought it was like a random, like just by happenstance.
That'd been crazy.
That would have been nuts. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, cool. That is hilarious. You got a good dramatic story. You got a good how to have fun in the Brookfield story, and then we got a good recruiting story. Boom, boom, boom.
Boom.
Solid. Oh man. Well, holy cow. That brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for being here, man. I hope you had fun. Hope it was all right.
Oh, had a blast. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And guys, if you're listening, we've made it to the end. Thank you so much for listening. Keep on listening. Keep an eye out for some of our future guests coming up. Ron Alford is in the works. We'll be recording with him in a couple weeks. His episode will be out in late September. Thank you so much for listening in. Thank you so much, Jack, for making it all the way with us. And it's been such a cool story. It's such a good thing that you're doing. Congratulations on selling your business. Congratulations on your success. And I'm looking forward to keeping up with how it goes with you and your walk of faith and how you can continue to spread your message and the word, throughout the years to come. So super excited about that. My name is Andres Gamboa. Thank you guys so much for listening in. Make sure you guys subscribe to our newsletter. Go to our website, theponytailspodcast.com. You can get more information about our show and how to get it. If you want to be a guest, if you're listening in for the first time, you want to be like, I got some cool stories. reach out to us. We'd love to have you on. So that is all for us today. Thank you so much, everybody. Peace out. Bye.